Jeremy Corbyn has once again been rebuffed by the bureaucrats at the top of the Labour Party. An attempt to have the whip restored to the former leader was this week voted down at a meeting of Labour's National Executive Committee. The motion, which would have urged the Labour whips to readmit Corbyn to the Parliamentary Labour Party, was defeated by 23 votes to 14. He will continue to sit as an independent MP. In response to the defeat of the motion, Corbyn tweeted, "Today's NEC vote and Keir Starmer's ongoing decision to bar me from sitting as a Labour MP is disappointing. I am grateful for and humbled by the support I've received, especially from my Islington North constituents. The struggle for peace, justice and sustainability goes on." The issue of Corbyn and the whip is of particular significance when it comes to the Islington North Labour Party selecting their candidate for the next general election. If Corbyn remains without the whip, he will presumably be barred from standing. The decision by the NEC comes less than a week after Labour welcomed a Tory MP into the party with open arms. It was apparently made, or this decision about Corbyn was apparently made with little to no debate from those who opposed the motion. They simply voted against it without giving their reasons. Of course, the official line from the party is that Jeremy Corbyn cannot be readmitted to the PLP unless he apologises for the statement he released following the publication of the EHRC report into anti-Semitism. We can remind you of the post in question. Corbyn wrote, "Anyone claiming that there is no anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is wrong. Of course there is, and there is throughout society, and sometimes it is voiced by people who think of themselves as on the left. Jewish members of our party and the wider community were right to expect us to deal with it, and I regret that it took longer to deliver that change than it should. One anti-Semite is one too many, but the scale of the problem was also dramatically overstated for political reasons by our opponents inside and outside the party, as well as by much of the media."
The audience of this elongated theatre of punishment against Jeremy Corbyn is not the electorate. The electorate might not have, in 2019, wanted Jeremy Corbyn to be leader of the Labour Party, but I don't think that they necessarily felt that someone who has been, a Labour MP for many, many, many years, who actually, on a lot of his individual positions, many people in the country agree with, and who, by all intents, by the admission of the very people who are leading the charge against Jeremy Corbyn, is a really good Labour constituency MP. The audience for this is the commentariat, and it feels very much like the commentariat decide what positions it's okay for Labour to take and not to take. It's kind of that leading from behind logic that I think really dominates Keir Starmer's strategy. And it's very uncomfortable to watch this when you compare the boldness and the ruthlessness with which Keir Starmer is treating Jeremy Corbyn compared to, I don't know, the Tories, or compared to Wakeford, who was welcomed with open arms into the Labour Party, despite his long history. Actually relatively short history, because he's got a very short political career. But within that history was very much dominated by quite unequivocally indications of racist ideologies and voting on very racist legislation, what I would consider to be racist legislation. So you compare that to, the treatment of Jeremy Corbyn, and you sort of look back and you think, what are Labour values now in this context? When you think about, okay, how could Labour potentially win another general election? There's lots of conversations about, should the strategy be around, getting Tory swing voters, or should it be around or getting people who have voted Tory to vote Labour, or should it be more centred around galvanising people who don't typically vote to vote? That can be up for discussion, whatever. What isn't up for discussion is that constituencies like young people, people of colour, people of migrant backgrounds are absolutely essential in order for Labour to win. There cannot be a Labour government without those communities coming out for the Labour Party. And unfortunately, Jeremy Corbyn is liked by a significant proportion of those constituencies. we have to remember that under Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party increased to become the biggest party by members in Europe. And so the idea of throwing all of that away and being so eager to distance yourself from that seems like cutting your nose off to spite your face. There is clearly a way in which Keir Starmer could have both marked his own vision out for Labour in an attempt to recover some of the things that were lost and some of the voters that were lost, whilst also saying, this is a broad coalition and the people that made up that significant chunk of Labour's history, Labour's recent history, and Labour's base are still welcome in the party. And so why he's decided to go to just have no holes barred, and this no holes barred approach on making sure that it is very clear, by taking this very extreme action, by making it very clear that all of those people are not welcome in the Labour Party, it feels like a very unnecessary, like presenting, if you're just looking at this from a purely electoral position, so take out the morality, take out the political whatever, just purely electoral strategy, it just seems like one that's going to really, really backfire. So that question of sustainability, from whatever your political standpoint is, as long as if you want the Labour Party to be in government, that doesn't seem like a particularly sustainable strategy to go ahead with, and it makes the Labour Party look really, really divided.
It definitely doesn't make the party seem like a particularly open-minded or welcoming place to have the former leader just not being allowed to sit as an MP. I think it's completely self-defeating.